Hi, in this tutorial I'm going to take you through how to texture a house similar to this. So we're going to put roof tiles on, bricks and glass, and I'm going to work on showing you how to make selections if you have a single object or an object where you need to grab the surfaces and texture certain parts of those surfaces, which it's not very easy to figure out from scratch. So it's easy when you know how, and that's what I'm going to show you. So let's get started. I'll just kill this scene, so we're starting from the same point. And you can use any model for this. So if you go to a search engine and look for free 3D house model, as long as it's a format that Cinema 4D can read, you can bring that into it. And if you want to see what format Cinema 4D supports, if you go Command E or Control E on the PC, and then scroll down and go Import Export, unfold this, whoops, and this, you can see the various formats Cinema 4D supports. So for example, a very popular one for buildings is SketchUp. So there's the .skp import, and there you can see there's a few options you can use if you want to use a SketchUp file. But there's also, you can bring in things like OBJ, VRML, FBX, DWG, DXF, Collard, and loads of different ones. And Cinema 4D also has great links to the likes of Allplan, ArchiCAD, and Vectorworks, which are part of the Nemetschek group, which Maxon is a member of too. Okay, so, but in this case, the principles are the same. So if you've got Studio or Visualize of Cinema 4D, if you go to the content browser, oops, I'll just go back up to the top so we're at the same point. If you then go to Presets and then Visualize, you have loads of content of different things that you can use to populate your scenes, or you can model something from scratch. But in this case, I want to have a look at 3D objects, and then I'll scroll down to buildings, houses, and I want house 16. So this is similar to UK style houses. And if you double click on it, it will come into the scene. And then these three icons, first one's left, right, up, down. Drag on the second one, you go forwards and backwards, and the third one is rotate. And they correspond to 1, 2, and 3. If you hold down each of those on your keyboard and do the same things, you get the same movement. So just get used to that, because I don't want to be saying that all of the time in this tutorial, but it's pretty simple. So you can see we've got this basic white house in the scene. Very simple. And it's got one material on it at the minute, just a simple white house. And that's it. So that's fine, but what if you wanted to put some more detail on here? How do you control what goes where in terms of materials? Well, Cinema 4D's got a great selection mode for it, and it's easy when you know how. So let's show you how it works, and then you can have a crack at it. Okay, so first of all, we need our Polygon Mode, which is this icon here. And then you can see the polygons that make up this particular house. Now, if you're bringing in your model from another application, you may have selections already. So you may want to check a little further through this tutorial where we're talking about the selection tags that I'm going to make in a minute, just to check you haven't got these already, because you may have ones for walls and roofs and things already. But if you haven't, here's how you get started. So I'm going to grab the select tool, and I'm going to start on this bit of roof first. I'm going to call this the front of the house, because that's where the entrance is. So I'm just going to drag over and grab some of these, and you'll see they highlight orange as I select. And then if I zoom in a bit using 2 or move in, and then hold down Shift, I can add to that selection like so. So I just want this front edge, just this first one, not the second one. So here I'm going to be putting roof tiles on. So I'm going to do the roof in 2 sections, because I've got a bit of roof going one way and a bit of roof going the other way. And that might give me a bit of headaches in terms of getting the material on nicely. So just in case, I'm going to have the 2 roofs as different parts. And I could go right round and add more and more detail, but I just want that bit and then this under bit as well. So again, I hold down Shift to grab it, and I'm only interested in one angle. I'm not going to do the entirety of the house. I'm just going to do this angle, because there's no point, because I'm not going to see the back. So I'm not going to waste your time by texturing that, but the principle's the same regardless. Okay, so that's what I'm interested in applying a material to. Select and then set selection. And that applies a little tag here called a Polygon Selection Tag. and that stores the selection information that I've got here. And what I can do with that, if I then overwrite this and call this, say, roof 1, and then just hit enter, that'll always be called that, and I can use that in conjunction with other things that I put on there, like materials, and say only apply it to this selection. So I've got that ready. If I go to the content browser, scroll up again, I say scroll up, press up, so we're going up levels, and what I'm looking for is materials. Now you can create your own materials from scratch, but in this case I'm going to make use of Cinema 4D's inbuilt ones because there's some really nice ones for architecture. So again, you need Visualize or Studio for these, but in the Visualize you've got these materials, and one of which is tiles, roof tiles, and then you have these nice roof tile materials. So I quite like roof 13, and if I drag and drop it onto my selection, it's then automatically applied in a hideous projection mode. You can see that looks nothing like roof tiles at the minute because the default is spherical, which is rubbish in this case. So there are different projection modes, and these are kind of like a projector that you see at a cinema. It will project stuff on. So a cinema, when you think about it, projects forwards, frontal, onto a screen. But with Cinema 4D, there are several, and in most 3D packages you have this. You have spherical, cylindrical, flat, cubic, and more posh ones like UVW mapping. And these refer to how the material is going to be projected onto the object. So in this case, I'm going to have a look at flat. And flat, you can see, still not quite right because the roof's at an angle. So we need some way of controlling how this is applied to the roof. And that is done with this tool here, which is the texture mode, and this shows you currently how the material is being projected, and you can see it's being projected from the front in this direction, which makes no sense because the roof is this direction. So we need to rotate it. So we grab the rotate tool and then hold down shift and then go over the green tool, the green sort of axis here, and if you hold down shift at the same time you can get nice snapping between the things. We want 90 degrees. Now we could get really posh and go and change the angle this way, but that actually looks like that's doing quite a nice job even from that angle there, so I'm quite happy with that. So I'm going to leave that as it is, but I could, if I wanted, go this way, and you can see it adjusts the mapping accordingly. So normal practice would be to try and match it really closely, but we don't have to, and there are other modes of doing this in all kinds of ways, but I'm just going to leave that there because I think that's fine. But you get the idea. You can mess around with it more accurately if you wish. The other thing we need to think about is the size of the roof tiles, because they may be okay or they may not. They look a bit big to me. So if I go to the Object Manager and select this, you can see I get the size of the tiles here, the length U and length V, which is the width and the height. So if you grab hold of one and type in a different number, like say 80, you can see that the U is the width, and that's made kind of like thinner tiles, and then the V is the length, and then you can debate whether you want those different or not. So thinking about it, I'm going to have 80 and 60 and 80 or whatever. And the other thing you may need to do, if we zoom in a little bit, is just check how they're falling on the roof and whether you want to move them, because you can do very easily. Grab the move tool and you can move them around. And you can see the preview of Cinema 4D is really good. Excuse me. It gives a really nice detailed preview of what that roof is looking like, and you could just mess around with those scales to your heart's content, really, whether that's big or too small or whatever. But yeah, that's looking pretty good. So already we've got the roof done. If you mess up the camera like I did there, by the way, if you hold down Command Shift or Control Shift and Z, you can undo your camera view, which is quite useful. Okay, so we need to do the other roof now. So what I would do is just click, sorry, that material's fine, I can do that. Grab the Polygon Mode again, grab the Select tool, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing but for the other roof. And just go in and grab just the edge. If you overspill like that, you can hold down Control and drag, and then that'll take away from the selection. So that's pretty easy to do if you need to do that. And we do the same selection all around here. Bump, bump, bump. And the principle is exactly the same as what we've done before. So we've got those, and we go selection, set selection, and then we've got it in here as well. Now, because we're at a different angle, I want another kind of clone of this material here to deal with this angle. So I'm going to drag and drop that on again, and it will take the roof. What did I call it? Roof. Sorry, hang on. I've just called this one Polygon Selection, but I could rename it something else. So let's call it Roof 2, just so we know what's going on. And then I'll have to update that now. That's my fault, but Roof 2. And you can see we've got the cylindrical again, so we go flat, and then we have a look at the material. And in this case, that's okay, because it's projected nice this way. And then we just need to look at the old one for a reference, and we use 60 and 80. So we'll copy that, and then hey presto, the roof looks very similar. So that's the roof done. Pretty cool, huh? So you're hopefully getting into the swing of things now, that the rest should be relatively easy to do. So we'll whip through it and show you the different things. So, but projection modes can change depending on what you're using. So what about if we had kind of all this shape here, all of this that we want the bricks? Aha, actually, just before we do that, can you see I missed a piece here? Just here. This is useful to know. So if I go and grab that selection, and I grab my select tool, say restore selection, and then I can add to it, hold down shift, add, and then just go select set selection, and it adds it to it. So that's useful to know if you miss one, huh? Okay, so I'll select a material again, so I'm not selecting anything in particular. Start my selection again, and I'm going to do the walls. Like so. And if you've got fairly simple walls, or whoops, get a bit too excited there, then this mode may be fine, but there are other select tools that may speed things up for you. Sorry, I missed. There we go. So for example, you could go for loop selection, and you see I'm getting loops of things, which can help select lots of an area very quickly. Sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't, but in this case I'm just going to go free selection, or live selection I think it's called, just to add the bits that I want. And then I'm going to show you how we grab the finer detail in the corners a little easier using the selection tools. So you just move around, hold down shift as you want to add to the selection. Bum, bum, bum. And then rotate is 3, move is 1. So we just keep going around the scene. And if we overspill like there, we hold down control and we can just deselect from it. Around this way. Probably doing a bit more than I need to here, but just to give you the idea, it's always good to practice. Because once you know this technique, you'll do it again and again and again on such projects. And like we were saying before, if you've got, if you're coming in from another application such as Vectorworks or SketchUp, you may already have materials assigned, and in that case you can just update the materials because the selections are already defined. But it's good to know how you control it if you need some finer detail. Now you can see that as I'm getting to the edge here, if I zoom in, there's like this tiny indent here, which can be quite hard to select all those and quite fiddly. So what I can use there is one of these select modes that we have. And if I go down to the loop selection, where's it gone? Can't see the wood for the trees. There we go. Right. And then hold down shift and then click it when you've got the loop. So you see that that's just highlighted around the window edge. And that's selected all 4 of them quickly for me, so I don't have to do it. And there's loads of different select modes, but loop is sometimes quite handy, like that, like that. And again, remember, if you mess this up, you can always unselect or select other pieces, but it can work quite nicely. And you just hit the click when you've got the highlight that you want of the loop. You can always go back to ordinary live selection. If you look where my mouse pointer is, there's a funny icon which tells me I'm in loop selection mode as well. So Cinema 4D always gently tells you what it's doing, just to make things a little clearer for you. There we go. So hopefully I have all my bricks that are in shot ready to create a selection. So I go select, set selection, and then I can call that bricks. And then I need some bricks. So again, Content Browser is really cool for this. If we go in here, scroll up one, scroll up another one, and then we want bricks. And there's all sorts of bricks, as you can see. I'm going to use bricks 2, drag and drop them on. Change from spherical to cubic, and you can see cubic works really well in architecture. So for most building shapes, it's great. And then the only thing to debate is whether you need a different scale size of the bricks. So you may want to go to your mode here and either manually scale it using this. And if you do that, you can control all three modes at the same time. Or if we undo with Command Z, I can go and grab the brick selection and do it a little finer here. So I could go, I don't know, maybe 80/80. And that's probably about right. Depends. I know a lot of people count the bricks, so you can count the bricks there, and you can also try moving it around slightly just to try and make sure you've not got mortar in weird places where it wouldn't really be. So it's a little hit and miss, and you can see I seem to have over picked over here. Looks like I've got the part of the window pane as well. So if I go and grab that selection there, whoops. Restore selection, make sure I'm on my polygon mode, and then hold down control. Whoops. Make sure I'm on select mode, not move mode. Hold down control, and I'll get rid of that one. And then select, set selection. So again, that's handy if you've overspilled rather than underpicked. And I've missed one there as well, so we could go and grab that one. Select, set selection. So it's really easy to update your selections when you know how. So there we go, we've got our bricks, we've got our roof tiles. I forgot one up here. So we'll go up here and we'll add those as well. And again, you could use the loop tools to grab all of those because they're nice loops, but that'll do. If you want to go back to your original camera angle, that's Control or Command on the Mac, plus Shift plus Z, and you'll undo your camera moves. So you can go back to a camera move was a previous one if you wish. But that looks okay to me, I think. And then we've got one more job to do, which are the windows. So again, click off the selection and then start selecting your windows. So I just want the panes. And of course, remember, you can zoom in. And just that one. Boom, 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 boom. Select, set selection. We'll call that glass. And again, the good old content browser has some glass that we can use. There's all sorts of glass. Should be called glass, funny enough. So then you can go through, pick what glass you like. There's a simple glass, which will be fine. Drag and drop that on. And there we have it. Apart from I forgot to add that to my bricks, so I could go back to that. It's all good practice. So go back to that, restore selection, and then add to that by just grabbing those. Select, set selection, there we go. And that quick, we've textured a fairly complicated set of textures on and got ourselves the style of a house. If we have a quick render. Now, of course, everything's looking fairly plain at the minute, but we've got to the point where the house has some reasonable textures on it, and then it's really a case of playing around with the texturing and doing final adjustments, doing any additional rendering or anything like that. Just to give you an idea of some quick fun things you could do, you could grab a floor and then chuck a white background on there just to give it a more illustrative look. And of course, you can up that brightness on that floor to make it look a little bit nicer. You could add a sky to the scene, so there's physical sky. If we chuck that in the scene, we'll get like a very basic blue, like so. And that'll give us a little bit of lighting. Very simple lighting to begin with. as you can see there. And if we have a quick look at that physical sky, you can pick time and location. So we could say today, we could up the sun intensity. So we could say, okay, it's 150%. You can grab the sky and rotate it round. So we could have a look where it looks best with the sun, maybe there. We could add a bit of weather if we wanted. So we could go and grab some presets. So a load of sky preset or a load of weather preset. Maybe some clouds like that. A quick look what that's looking like. So yeah, and then we just keep playing with this scene like so. Or you can have finer control or do lights manually, or all kinds of things. Another method that you can use that can give very nice lighting is Hdri lighting, which again is very simple to set up. I'll quickly show you. So if we delete the physical sky, we want a round sky dome in the content browser. If we go up to, what do we want? Presets, light setups, Hdri. Grab a Hdri. You can then put that on the sky itself and then use that to help light your scene. So fairly standard light there, but then you can combine that with some other effects. So we could go, so I've gone into render settings, Control B, and then effects. We could go with global illumination. So this will add a bit of bouncing of light around in the scene. We could also add some ambient occlusion to add a bit of detail in the corners. And then if we have a quick look at that, I'm just going to change I'll check the render size. I'm going to go screen 640 by 480 just so it's nice and quick for this example, or quickish. And then we'll go render to the external picture viewer. And then the more render options you put on, of course, the longer things will take, and we could talk for a long time about render options and different things, but you can see it's churning that out pretty quick, and we're starting to get more realistic lighting. We can add tags to get rid of that background as well if we don't want to see the background. If we wanted a different background, we'll quickly do that. So you can do clever things with Cinema 4D light tags, Cinema 4D tags, compositing. We could say, I don't want you to be seen by the camera, and instead I want to have a background that's also white, and in that case I want a tag on there, compositing, and in this case I will say I don't want that to do anything except be seen by the camera. And if we re-render now, hopefully I've got that right. So that's one of the really cool things about 3D, that you can cheat real life and say, I need control over this or that, or I don't, want to use this to light it or that to light it, and you get results like this. One other thing just to check, anti-aliasing. Whenever you've got any transparency or reflections in the scene, it's best to have this set to best, and then you won't get anti-aliasing jaggedy bits or lack of anti-aliasing in areas. So that tells Cinema 4D to look at all areas and make sure that everything is all nice and lovely. I'll make the final output slightly bigger just so you can see what's going on. But of course lighting is a massive subject, and it takes a long time to really polish your scene, but hopefully it's given you an idea that getting started with Cinema 4D is pretty easy when you know what you're clicking on and how to do things. And of course tweaking everything in here is also very simple as well. So if we think, like, I'm looking at these roof tiles thinking maybe they're a little bit big, or maybe I do want to change the angle so it matches quite better than it did before. I've got control over all of those options, but you can see I'm starting to get some interesting shadows now in the corners. Maybe it's still a little bit dark. One thing to point out on that though is you can also set up Cinema 4D to export to Photoshop or After Effects or many other applications and have things on separate layers. So I could have my lights on separate layers, or my materials on separate layers, or my objects on separate layers, or reflections or shadows, and that gives me real control over the compositing afterwards. I can have alpha channels and all kinds of weird and wonderful stuff. It's really easy to turn on as well. Or Cinema 4D has a built-in filter system here in the render manager where you can just play around a little bit and just do minor tweaks to the scene. It's not affecting the rendering per se. It's like post effects, but you can apply it to all or have it off or on or whatever. But you can see that's off, that's on, so it can sometimes help just to do final tweaks, because it's with 3D, because there are so many elements, it can take a while to get the exact look that you're after. So it's often quicker to tweak things like colors and final shadows in post as opposed to look to achieve the perfect render straight off the bat. But you can see we've got the bulk of the hard work done there, and it looks pretty good. Hopefully you learn a lot from that. And there's of course so much more to Cinema 4D to learn, but it's a good starting point, and now you know how to apply materials to reasonably complicated shapes such as houses in Cinema 4D, make your selections, and you've had a slight dabble into the Cinema 4D content browser, of which there is loads of stuff that you can play with. But thanks very much for watching. I hope you learned some stuff.